Welcome to the Worth It Practice podcast. It's me again, Dr. Leah Kleonsky, and I am so excited about my amazing guest because he's going to talk about something that I feel like scares us as practice owners. The thing we have to talk about is what do we do when we are being profitable? We talk so much about when things go wrong, but sometimes things go very, very right. So as profit comes into our business, we actually have money we could take home. What do we do with this money? And that's why I'm so glad that Randall Avery is here. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell me and the audience a little bit about you and your background?
So my name is Randall Avery. I'm located here in the Atlanta metro area. I'm a certified financial planner and I specifically work with practice owners. Now, practice owners does include mental health professionals, but it also extends to dentists, attorneys, and engineers. What I've noticed that's specifically tailored toward these practice owners allows me to see what they go through and the benefits of building wealth in a practice.
I love that. I love that you have that specific niching with practice owners because we're a little bit different, I feel like, than other entrepreneurs in different spaces at times.
Yeah, it's a different service model. So a lot of people think about business in the industrial complex. People hold inventory, all those things. But when you're in a service-based model where your labor is usually what brings you in income, you have to think about your business differently because there's only so much capacity. And I think one of the exciting things we're going to talk about, what happens when you fill up your capacity and are building wealth through that.
Right. What happens when you do all the things, your dreams come true, you're pulling in the money that you never thought you would pull in. And by the way, it makes you anxious because you've been trained, like all psychologists have been trained, not to care about the finances. But if you don't have any profit, your business dies.
Yes, and let's talk about like from the beginning. So the beginning works usually like this. You go to college, you're not bringing in a lot of money. Then you have to go through supervisor hours. You're still not bringing a lot of money. And sometimes you work for an agency. It's so many years of you not making a lot of money, transitioning to the point where you're making enough to save and build wealth. That's a different feeling.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're a psychologist, and a lot of my audience is. When I was in graduate school, they paid us to be in grad school. That was great. We didn't have to incur that much debt. We were not allowed to work outside of grad school. We made $12,000 a year. It was not enough to live on. So for years, we made $12,000. Then we went to internship. I think I made $22,000. Then you go to postdoc. And suddenly you're able to make like a reasonable income once you get your PhD. But there are many, many years where you're not making anything. And then even when you start off, everyone's kind of like, this is not the profession for making money. And then when you go into business and it goes your way, you just are not comfortable with that. There's a lot of guilt and shame around being able to pay yourself well, not just survive.
So I have the privilege to speak to a lot of postdoc programs, just kind of prepare them to earn that money. And one thing that I notice is you guys kind of come together during those postdoc programs, bouncing how to struggle, how to get by, and you create a pseudo culture of just squeaking by. So when you first receive, let's say, your big person salary of $80,000, $120,000, the question is, what am I supposed to do with this? And I think a lot of times there's a lot of dreaming you do during that program, like, I want to buy this car, I want to live in this neighborhood. And let's not talk about major life decisions become accelerated because you guys have been in school so long. So things like family creation, things like buy a home that you've been holding back, you tend to put those in place faster than, let's say, your counterparts who had more time.
Well, and then also, if you then become a business owner and your business does well, you can start making way over that salary. You can start actually potentially making multiple six figures. And that is so different than where you were 5 years ago. That can be a really big shift where, you've been investing into your practice. You're used to putting your nose to the grindstone. You're used to working so hard. And then suddenly you pay everyone and there's money left in the bank. And I've seen people freak out over that money. And I used to get really panicked when I could see money like that come in. So I've had to do a lot of work on myself. And I imagine you've seen clinicians come in doing well, but terrified of it.
Yeah, usually what happens is first starting off as a clinician, it can be tough. And then the big scare paying taxes hits you. But then after you say, well, I've allocated enough for taxes, I still have about $40,000 in my account. What should I do now? Do I feed my business a little bit more, or should I take some home and actually, crazy thought, live life?
Or invest in something, right? You have the money, you suddenly have it, you can take it home. and go on vacation, and then maybe you could still put it towards something like in the stock market, and that feels scary too.
That's a good point. So if you have been in school for so many years, you haven't seen the ups and downs in the stock market. You only heard hearsay of what's been happening. So that could be fearful. And another thing you have to think about, business owners who are service-based business, they're not going to get a big valuation, meaning that if you decide to sell your business, it's not going to be the windfall of other types of business. So being what I like to call independently wealthy from your practice, saving, investing is so important. You have to realize that you've spent so many years in school, so many years building your practice, you could be slightly behind when it comes to saving. So investing is so important.
What do you say when a practice owner comes to you and they say, I'm doing well,
Mhm.
I finally have this money and I feel really scared about it. Maybe I'm a bad person for being profitable. What is the thing that you say to them at those times with your business knowledge?
Yeah, so for me, first, you have to somewhat validate their feelings. You say, okay, I hear that you're scared. That's number one. It's easy for some financial planners who don't work with this population to gloss over and say, move money here, move money there. I take a step back and say, what do you want? What are your hopes, dreams, and wishes? Because when you've gone through a period of time of not making a lot of money, you actually suppress your ability to hope and dream what happens. Do I want to live in a certain house? Do I want my kids to go to a certain school? Do I want to have these things? Those are the things to dream. Then once that happens, I make sure we have some things in place like an emergency fund, making sure we're contributing to our different retirement accounts, things of that nature, and make sure they're on track for those. And then I say, live life, have fun, enjoy. And this is tough for a lot of people who become doctors. They think, well, I'm a doctor, I can only do XYZ. Well, if you do XYZ and you become successful, you actually have options to expand what you do outside of one-on-one clinical work. And maybe that needs some type of investment. And I think that's a fun place to be in.
That is a fun place to be. And I love how you're talking about this idea of what can you do after and how can you have some fun. I was in this Facebook group. Did you know therapists hang out a lot in Facebook groups? I don't know why we do it, but there's this Facebook group where someone was talking about they were afraid private pay was unethical because they felt like they made too much money. They felt that they made an unreasonable amount of money and like the guilt and shame was there for them. And then they put it on the rest of the group. They were like, this amount of money, I think it was $200,000, is too much for someone to be making. It's wrong that I have this wealth. And I'm curious what you would have said to them if you'd been having a conversation with them. I wouldn't have seen that in any other business forum ever, I don't think.
I think that you're spot on with that. You won't see that anywhere. In the traditional business world, if somebody makes a profit, we automatically assume they provided some type of value to society to actually earn that money. So it's almost a reward, a pat on the back. Sometimes in the therapist world, it's more of why am I charging XYZ? Is this equal to the market or less than the market? If somebody doesn't have insurance, I can't serve that population. I think things are slightly a little bit more nuanced. If you have a specialty, if you're able to super serve your client base and maybe get them to the place they want to, maybe in a shorter time frame, I believe you should be compensated for that. And not only that, now you have the money to reinvest in your life so that you show up better for them. And I think showing up better for the people and the population you serve, that's so valuable.
Right? If you're not drained and burnt out because you are financially able to take care of yourself, then you're a better clinician, you're a better parent, you're a better person in your own life. And also, if you have more money, you can actually donate it to causes that you care about. So you can do good with the money that you have. You don't have to invest it, or you can invest it in something that you believe in. So I think people have this really challenging money mindset where they feel so uncomfortable that they set up a way almost of giving it away or losing it sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen something interesting. It's called the barbell approach in business, where some people will serve a super affluent client base or a client base that pays them a lot, but they'll also use that money to serve maybe a less affluent client base. So folks who have, let's say, a waiting list, you can go to somebody and say, hey, we have this waiting list. If you use insurance, you use X. But if you want to skip the line, we have this additional service. You know, it's a little bit more expensive, but you get your service here now. So sometimes you can actually fund that population that you truly want to serve and also invest back in your practice to serve the general population better. I think we have to look at the wins versus really feeling bad about, hey, I'm making a great living and enjoying life.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can feel guilty about things going well because the idea of the business really is it's supposed to work for you, right? Like you're supposed to help people and do good things that are aligned with your values and make you proud. But what is the point of doing all of the work of running a business if at the end of that, there's nothing additional there for you? That's why you become an entrepreneur, is to have time freedom and financial freedom in addition to doing things that you feel good about. And it's like we're comfortable until we have the time freedom and the financial freedom. And then that's too scary. It feels like too much to be responsible for. Or did we even deserve it? I feel like are the thoughts that come up for people in those times.
And that is so interesting. Do we even deserve it? I think if you don't want to compare, but if you do things on a relative basis, you guys have went to school to obtain your doctorate. The sacrifice that you made to reach that level. You guys help people on an individual basis. The thought is, what is more valuable than being able to be whole? That you're giving to a person, or even helping them assess where they can improve in life. That is a very valuable commodity. And I think the only reason that we don't think of it naturally that way is because of insurance companies. And if you take insurance, sometimes you're actually feeding the system that is devaluing the value that your profession adds.
Yeah, that's true because the system is so problematic that when you take insurance with good intentions, right, to help more people, serve more people, or because you're scared that without it you can't get an income, you are also participating in the insurance industry. And then when they do things like cut your rates for no reason, claw back money, put you through the hell of justifying everything you're doing, then you're all like paying again with all of that time and energy. And you're sort of saying, yeah, I'm here and you can do this to me and I'll stay for it.
Yeah, some of the worst things I've heard is insurance company will limit the amount of sessions you can provide. Like I said, I work in this field a lot, and I've heard of things like, because folks take private pay, they can do counseling intensives. So sometimes people need an intense 3-hour session, definitely with some breaks, and that's what's needed to solve the problem. But if I'm following a cookie cutter model, am I doing potentially more harm?
Yeah, when people ask why I don't take insurance, people don't ask me that much anymore. I have several answers for that. One of those answers is that I want to do the kind of treatment that is right for families. I don't want to be told how to practice. And that's what the clinicians in my practice like as well. They want to do the treatment that they feel is right for that client, given that situation. However many sessions it is, or however few sessions it is, they want to be helpful. We don't want to diagnose things that don't warrant an actual DSM diagnosis. We don't want to over pathologize. And to be honest, nobody knows what happens to your health information once it goes into the insurance system and whether later down the line you'll be disqualified for something. So you just have a lot more protection over your health information if you don't accept insurance, and it gives you more freedom. And then again, you're not seeing a million clients a week because you're not being so underpaid. So those are the reasons that I give why we don't accept insurance. I do know it's something people struggle with a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's traumatizing. So me and my wife, we did some counseling, and I think the psychologist at the time said that, okay, to continue to use insurance, we have to diagnose you with something. And we're like, well, we just want the counseling. But he said, well, this is how the insurance works. I think we have to listen sometimes to the customer, like, we don't like that, but the insurance is forcing this down. So I 100% agree with you. When you think about providing an amazing customer experience, that's something you have to think about.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Randall, so I have a question for you. So let's say the business owner makes the profit. They take the profit, right? They've paid all their expenses. They have that fun money left over. What should successful therapists, entrepreneurs be thinking about doing with that money after?
Now, are they fully invested, or are we talking about investments now?
Well, let's say that all they've done is finally taken a profit. So they've taken a profit. So maybe they're an S Corp. They've paid themselves their salary. They're taking the distribution after the fact. So if you have an S Corp company, you get paid a salary, but the profit that's left over, you can actually take and not pay employer taxes on it. So that's one of the reasons for an S Corp. But that's basically saying you really have that extra profitability is what I'm communicating here.
Yes.
So you have that extra profit. What would you do with it? Like, would you invest it? And what kinds of accounts should people think about? And at what point do they need a financial planner?
The beauty of being a business owner is there's actually accounts specifically for business owners. And I'll go progression by simplicity to more complex. Before you take a distribution, you can actually reduce your tax liability and contribute to an employee in a self-employed retirement account. The first one is called the SEP IRA, Simplified Employee Pension Plan. And all that is just a typical 401k. So that way you can contribute to your retirement, lower your tax liability, and that's a win-win. Once you get a little bit more complex, there's something called a solo 401k, and that's really good for those S Corp individuals because like you said, you pay yourself first. And the goal with the solo 401k is to reduce, and not all business owners are going to cringe, self-employment tax. Reducing that amount, that is what the solo 401k is really good for. So just starting off there, just really compare that to a 401k for a traditional employer. So I would fund money there to one, reduce your tax liability and begin to save up for your future.
Yeah, I think sometimes we wait too long to save up for our future. I wish that I started investing 15 years ago, even if it was just a little bit, because then you miss out on all of the compounding that's been happening over time. And nobody told me to do that when I started off. And I wish that somebody had. But you don't think you need the financial guidance until you start bringing in that profit. And people say to you, hey, maybe you need some help with this.
And a little bit goes a long way. So even if you don't have, $20,000, $30,000 every year to contribute, if you're only doing $500 to $1,000, like you said, if you start early, you can receive compound interest and actually grow your wealth. And I'm going to be honest, just because there's not as many opportunities I have to speak to this population, there is going to be a feeling of slightly being behind. So being a little bit aggressive as far as contributing to your retirement accounts and even your investment accounts, I think is warranted given the amount of times you guys are in school and the time to build up an income to begin saving on a regular basis.
When you work with practice owners, have many of them not started those sorts of accounts until you talk to them? Is it really common for them to come to you and you're the first one to say, you know what, we need to start like an account for retirement here? This would be a good use of your money.
It depends on where they're coming from. So if they're coming from a VA, there's a lot of like crossovers, LIRA practices. They have structured 401k plans that automatically enroll employees. Now, if they're coming from more like an agency, then it may be their first time because it's not as encouraged as some of those major things. So it really is where they're coming from depends on really their exposure to the investment world.
So if they came just private practice, like if they did their internship and their fellowship and then they started off first year and they never been doing agency work at all, then they might not have any sort of vehicle for planning for retirement because they don't know that you need one.
Correct. Yeah. So if somebody came in, like I said, they did their postdoc with the private practice and then work with that private practice or another private practice that may have used them as a 1099 employee or allocated them there, then yes, they would have zero exposure to any type of retirement plan. And you're really starting from scratch.
Yeah, because also sometimes people just go in and start their own practice at that point. And they're just trying to get the business up and running. And then they don't think, hey, wait a minute, there's retirement and I have to start planning right now for it because you're living in the right now.
And it's hard to switch that because so many years of not having, now you have. Now you have to tell me I'm going to have to fund money for retirement. And the answer is yes, and it's important. And there's some different things. As I've been doing this more, working more with practice owners, maybe it's not the retirement account. Maybe it's a brokerage account that gives you more flexibility with your money so you can reinvest in your account. And don't forget about the Roth IRA, especially if you're, let's say, 1 or 2 years into your private practice and you still are able to meet the income limits. Definitely think about opening up a Roth IRA.
Can you say what a Roth IRA is really quickly for people who might not know?
Sure, no problem. So a Roth IRA is a retirement account. And the benefit of this retirement account is once you put money in, it grows what is called tax exempt or tax free. And this way, you know exactly what you have in your retirement. So somebody will come to me and say, hey, Randall, I have $1 million. I say, that's amazing. But in actuality, that money is not all their money because they owe that money to Uncle Sam. So if Uncle Sam takes around 40%, then you only have $600,000. But if they come to me with $700,000 in a Roth IRA, 100% of that money is going to be used for them and won't be taxed. So it's almost guaranteeing yourself not to deal with the IRS because there is a theory that taxes are going to go up in the future. So why not pay them now and not have to deal with the IRS?
Oh, that's so helpful. And so when you start making too much money, then you don't qualify for that Roth IRA anymore. If you're still like, oh, I might be below that limit, I'm not quite at my income goals, then you can actually take advantage of that vehicle earlier. And then later on, you have to look at other options after the fact.
Yes, then we have to get a little creative. They are beginning to open up. So the SEPA that I mentioned earlier, they are coming out with the Roth version. So they're slowly coming up around, but take advantage now if you can. If you meet the income limitations, go ahead and contribute. There are some other ways we can get the money in there, but that is, I think, beyond the scope of this conversation.
Yeah, probably unless we get into super deep financial talk where we become out of where I know what's going on too. No, Randall, this is so helpful. I mean, I'm hoping that as the audience is listening to this, if you're listening to us discuss this right now and you're a clinician, you're thinking, first of all, it's okay to be profitable, which is something I talk about a lot, and you're going to hear me talk about it over and over and over again. But also that when you take that profit home, there's some things you can do with that profit that are going to fund your future. You just might need some help from a certified financial planner who can help you figure out what your options are so that you make the decisions right now that benefit you later. And again, this is not a conversation I ever heard discussed among my peers in graduate school. I never heard it on fellowship. I never even heard it talking to other practice owners. It is not a common discussion because I think we're avoiding the whole money topic a lot of the time. And that includes what to do when you have a profit that you can invest.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
spot on. If you take the risk and start your own practice, enjoy the fruits of it. And there are a lot of fruits, but sometimes it takes listening to podcasts like this, listening to consultants and financial planners to know what's all out there. And it's a beautiful world out there if you're opening to listening and enjoying what you've created.
Right, because we can learn anything.
Yes.
I can learn anything, you can learn anything. And the more we learn, the more we understand these frameworks, the more that we can benefit from the hard work that we are putting in, helping other people and also helping ourselves and our families, which is also so important.
Spot on. Definitely agree.
Randall, if there's any piece of advice you would want to give to this audience, what would you want to share?
I think the number one thing is you're 100% worth what you do. From the outside looking in, the services that you provide are extremely valuable. You guys are moving society forward and protecting us from a lot of different things that we don't have to go into right now. What you do is worth it. You should be compensated, and you can actually have a rich life, a wealthy life that you can live in a safe place. Your family can be safe and provided for, and you can enjoy the fruit of your labor. So that's what I want to give here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know after listening to this conversation, there are going to be clinicians and practice owners who want to contact you. What is the best way for them to contact you? And I know you have a book out there too that you want us to be able to find and access.
So the best way to contact me is to look on my website. It's going to be www.dasilwm.com. There you'll find links where you can schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It won't be any sales, just to get an opportunity for me to get to know you. And on the website, you can learn more about my firm and what I do. And you will see the time that I spend helping clinicians improve not only their practice, but their own wealth. I also am the author of the book, Hacking the System by Creating Your Own System. That's right behind me. If you feel angst about money, if you want a precursor before you really begin building wealth, I think that is an excellent resource to really understand, why am I having trouble building wealth? What is this system that has maybe pushed me down? And I've had some really good reviews on that. So hopefully those who are listening, who fits that demographic, can enjoy that book.
I think that's an amazing book for us to be able to read and access because we don't know what we're doing. And just understanding more of the framework of what is building wealth, what does that even mean? What is that even about? Is honestly a conversation that clinicians need to have more often.
Spot on. Definitely agree. And I read a book. It's called Who Not How. Leverage experts and people. You don't have to be an expert on everything. And definitely reach out to people who can help you out.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, Randall. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for listening to the Worth It Practice podcast. I will be talking with you again next week.